please, ask those questions. So, May 14th, 11 a.m. for, well, actually 11:20 already, or 23, and it's 5, no, 4:24 here in the UK. Okay, so this session, my name is Bally Binning, OpenAI's latest. That's what we're going to be focusing on today's session, and some of the capabilities within AI. We're specifically focusing on GPT. When I say GPT, I am talking about ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT product, and we're going to look at some of the models within that environment. So the last few sessions they've all been standalone sessions, but we've honed in last time on projects and Canvas. Today we're going to really look at what are each of these doing, because we're using GPT. If you're anything like me, if I go to the microwave, I have very, very simple setting. I just click one setting and I press like give me a minute of like heating this up. So what tends to happen is we have like one setting that we stick to. So I want us to think beyond that, just maybe that one setting, where it goes. And also, just for the purpose of thinking about your usage, we started just having a conversation about what the allowance might look like. And so, and I'm going to touch on some of these, and I can show you some of these also when we go into the GPT environment in that space. So the ones we have at the moment, we've come a long way since GPT, with kind of the very first one back in 2023. That was in autumn 2023. It feels like a long time ago. And now we've got kind of more complex, it's 4.5, we've got 4, we've got the mini series as well. You would have seen that. And Zora, again, fairly new, but lots of capabilities and memory. And also, but we started off thinking about the costing factor and also how it might be taking a lot longer, and in terms of timing and what it's able to do. So, what we're going to be doing for today's session is really looking at how far things and what's happening in this space, right? So, where we are is understanding kind of the 4.5 positioning. The way I see it is, if you're hiring a CEO, you're going to be paying them a lot more, right? So I see kind of using AI tools in the same way. If they're going to be doing more complex reasoning that I need them to think more strategically, then I'm actually kind of, in a way, I'm tasking it something to do because of the capabilities. They're kind of more, they're able to do that deeper thinking. And so that's kind of that's how I would view these when we're using any of these tools. And then you've got things like the GPT-4, and you've got the mini capabilities, which I'll go into. Now, the 4 is what we've been using when we're creating our own GPTs, which most of us have done. Althea, I know you've done that. Liza, I believe you've also done that now, maybe you're still using the free one, but this example of one you've got now, which you'll have in your sidebar, will give you a chance. But that in itself, 4 still has some of those um, thinking capabilities, a lot more than the earlier kind of 3 and 3.5. But and so we also have to think how we're going to be using them. And so if it inadvertently goes into 4.5, we can task it, and I'll show you how to do this. And then you've got some of these more kind of creative models like Sora, the audio features too, right? And you said Dali, right? We kicked off with Ivan talking about kind of Dali, and so we have that now. And within that space, within that in that environment, if you like. And then thinking about like how we're going to be using these that are going to be cost effective. If we're thinking about using, if we're using kind of the voice, so we're using standard voice, or we're using kind of more the advanced voice, what does that mean? We'll go into a little bit of that. If you're like me and you're going out for a walk, we're getting our steps in, and I'm using my GPT to take notes, then I may just either put it in audio, or may just have a conversation. And as as you were saying, Liza, it becomes kind of a friend that kind of understands you and how you're showing up and tasking certain things you've done. So yeah, so moving on, just to kind of picking up on this. So as I was just saying, 4.5 is more kind of, if you think about this, it's more kind of we'll be having 5 not, when it's not too far away, we kind of got the more advanced reasoning and more kind of the optimization, and strategic advantage of, where we're thinking of 4.5, I would think carefully about, am I using it for this? Does it need to, do I need to draw the CEO into this kind of reasoning? The four, again, you've got the text, you've got the audio, vision in one modal. We've been using examples of that. We've seen examples of that already. Enhanced reasoning, it's still four, still has the that kind of reasoning, and so it can do some of those problem solving because that's where we're using it, especially for our own GPTs. And then, of course, we've got the speed and efficiency. We're thinking about it's still fast. Like what we want it to do is, and some of the questions that came up is about when it takes too long. And it could be that we've not set the right model. Liza, when we're kind of tasked it to do something, have we made sure that we've got the right model doing the thing? And that may be the reason why maybe it's slow, or perhaps there may be other reasons, factors behind that as well. So just to kind of be mindful of like which one we're using. Then we've got the mini version as well. Like now, if I'm oops, let me just move on to the interactive conversations. I'll come on to mini in a moment. Um, so we're thinking of GPTs, right? So we're going into a place now where we're getting our tools to not only hear kind of what we're saying or typing in, but we're speaking to these models and we're having real-time conversations. And it's becoming more, especially with the advanced voice, if you like, it understands quite a lot of nuances. And I've noticed the difference already in the last 2, 3 weeks, like how much more it's improved. And we're seeing it even more as things are kind of shifting. And you've got sort of these visual and complex documents that it produces, and the kind of presentations. The way I see it is like each model or any AI tool, it's good for the thing that it's tasked to do. So ones like Dali, if we're looking at, or Midjourney, great for image creation. We've got a lot of music now, ones coming out, and the LLM models like Gemini, I think, Bryce, might be the one you're using, or Claude, they're the LLMs, which is a large language models. They're really about text. So, there are others as well that really recognize voice cloning, like Eleven Labs. So I always think about what the model is doing. And the reason why we're looking at GPT areas because the capabilities, what you're able to do, and also the parameters it still has. And it's different to say some of the open sources that we're starting to see out there because it comes with billions of parameters of training already. But I know that I can, like we've talked about creating these GPTs. Mini is a really good sort of thing if you're thinking of like like a quick, we want something quick. I always think of like someone we know it's going to be reliable, maybe good for kind of outlining something, and it's faster. And if we compare it to the kind of old version, and it's already old, a lot of these are kind of already becoming like the good old days back when 3.5 was around, and that feels like good old days already. We've come such a long way. And so it's more about how we've got kind of more of the same thing. So if we're creating social media content, you might be thinking of your usage. Well, actually, I don't need to use too much of my other capabilities. Why don't I use the kind of mini version here? That might be something to think about when you're doing that. Now, Zora, some of you may have started exploring Zora, or perhaps you're not aware that it's actually one of the newer features that have appeared in this space. And remember, we're only looking at one of the models yet, and that space within itself is a lot, and we're still able to do. It's about cinematic again from text to video. We've seen other tools that are able to do text to video, but yeah, so again, it's still in its like early kind of like when I say early, it's been around for a few days, but there's still a lot happening behind the scenes. So you've got video content that you can create in this space too. So we can see a lot is happening behind there, speech to text. I don't how many of you have been using that. It captures subtle tone, certainly, and this is kind of like what I'm noticing. If I'm dictating it or ask it to read back to me, text to speech, it does kind of a pretty good job already. But say what it does do, these AI tools, it serves to different styles of learning. So that's one thing that I find really helpful. Some of the things to bear in mind just in terms of the memory, and again, I'll go into this a little bit more. Now, when it becomes more like, I think we started off like, and a lot of people are saying this, like it's become your a friend because it's understanding our behavior. It's also understanding how we're showing up in the world, and it's also understanding what we like. If we're talking it to it in a way, it's mirroring back to us how we like to be spoken to, if you like. So it's like, wow, it's understanding me. It's getting how I like to be spoken to, and it's like a reciprocal thing, and it becomes kind of more personalized in a way. And we can also do this. And remember, it remembers like how you interact. It learns from your prior interactions. And so I've had people where they've had family members or their child's gone on, and suddenly the language has changed, and they're like, oh, that's a bit weird. I wasn't doing this before. We can turn those memory features off. So it doesn't, if we've got multiple users on there, but if we're using it for ourselves, then just to be mindful how we're speaking to it, it will replicate that. But then there's also then there are opportunities that we're losing if we're using it just for that, and we're not broadening our perspective and using different kind of GPTs. Hence the reason I've shared this one, because getting another perspective is always important, because then we're in that kind of way of just thinking in a way, and not kind of understanding how what you may how we're just focused in one way of thinking. So that's why I like these type of conversations. Like, okay, I'm saying this to it. Reduces repetition. And so the other thing about repetition and saving memory, something to think about is when you've got prompts that works, keep a bank of your prompts that are working. In other words, don't always start from primary basis because you've already done the work, and start kind of collating that information. Then it will remember, but you don't want it to keep doing you don't want it to do the thing again and again and again, because you've already got it to do that, like we did with when we were looking at having a brand guide and understanding the way we write. So it becomes a framework that we use, and we can use that. And hence the reason we have those GPTs. So view and delete to manage memory. It's really important you do that. So things that are become redundant, just delete them. And then of course we've got that kind of, because if things evolve in your business, or things are evolving in your offerings, and if you're serving different clients, have a think to see if am I deleting that memory. You can also toggle that so it doesn't understand that. We can look at some of those features too. So what I'd like everyone to think about, like think of it as a systems designer. Right tool selection, match the tools for the task requirement. It doesn't always happen. It's like anything we kind of habitually start doing with, we go to the gym, we might pick up certain piece of equipment, but we're thinking about what that might be, consciously deciding that, and saying, actually, I've noticed I'm still using this. My usage, it's saying I've actually now hit my limit. So what's going on with that? So what model am I using? Which one would be best for this task that I'm asking? So more of a kind of a tiered approach as opposed to kind of just a one way of doing things. And think of aligning it with kind of your AI, kind of the objectives behind that. And think about like management. How are you managing? Thinking of the strategic cost as well. And yeah, text model. So again, this is just an outline of what those costs might look like. Text models per token output. When we talk about tokens, they're different to characters. So tokens is just the way they if you like, cost us, or they charge us for what it is that we're using these models. So audio might be 1,000. I think that's probably about kind of what I'm noticing per minute. But even, that's a lot. Like that is a lot. But you're getting that many. If you can see how many characters you're getting in one go. Again, vision, like think about image token representation. When you're creating images, it does slow. You will have noticed that as well. It takes a little bit of time to generate images, and then the future of where we're going with video, and duration and resolution, and I've not tapped into that. Some of you may have gone into that just because I know it may slow things down when I'm doing other work, because at the moment using it a lot for writing content rather than creating videos. But I know that it's there's a lot happening there that, again, I'll be testing those things out. So always moving on to the component of safety and ethics and what's happening. Think about we've touched on this before. We did a whole session on this, but we can come back to this. But just thinking of like biases and certain things that as we're adding information, some of us are coaches here, so when we're uploading any transcripts, anonymize those just to be a bit mindful of that. And thinking of transcripts, just to be mindful that when we are using this information, or we're letting our clients know how we're using it, that we do kind of follow that kind of code of practice, and testing and filtering as well as we move into this, just to kind of responsibly use it, as I'm sure you all are, and that won't apply to any of us here, but still always a reminder of like how we're kind of using these tools, because we are training these models in a way. So key takeaways for us is choose the right tool for maximum value. And think about the different multimodality approach, not just kind of sticking with just one interactive tool, but think about how we're using these systems to best optimize and use we hear a lot of this in the AI architecture, and building and leading responsibly, and teaching others. Um, and some of the things, your AI strategy, we were thinking about some of the challenges we've had, and maybe when we're going on from a free over to, we're taking it over to a paid, just to kind of be mindful of that. So we've heard that as some of the, and the other challenges could be when we got too many AI tools, which one shall I go with? Am I jumping between different tools? Which one shall I have? I know those are some of the questions that might come up, and understand that it's evolving very quickly, and learning from each other, like what's not working through these shares. Yeah, so I just want to just kind of put this up here as we move into the next session. And you can see this is AI generated because he hasn't actually done the May, he's got map. But anyway, that's when our next session is happening there. But what I'd like us to do, just to open up on some of the usage, and I'll share what's happening when I'm using it, what's happening for me in a moment. But I did go through that really quickly, as I normally like pace through these, like go through it quickly so I can open this up and then show you what it looks like when we go into the platform itself, when we go in. Any questions with what I've just shared there? Ivan?
So on the kind of memory bit, where it keeps a record of all your chats.
Yeah.
By default, you go in and I guess it's Chat GPT 4.0 or whatever it is.
Mhm.
D- Um, does it pay you to go and then say change it? So I don't know. Just picking an example that I have here. So where am I? Personal statement, Ivan Vickers, right?
Yeah.
So I've using a craft blogger, blah blah blah, and yeah, what I've done is I've said, okay, um, by default it's ChatGPT 4.0. Okay, so if I hover over and create a new one, it suggests for this kind of task,
Hmm.
probably 3.0 is adequate.
Okay.
Can I go back and change it? Or should I go back and change it? Or should I just migrate it? Or should I just leave it?
So it's given you a recommendation already.
No.
Oh, it's not. Okay. So you can toggle. Yeah, you can go between that and then just because it might because in if you're open, so for example, if you're opening in that window, for example, here, and let me just double check that it's showing up on here. Let's come out of Roscoe. So if you notice here, by inadvertently, it's gone into 4.5, but I
Right.
haven't really like touched on these, like great for most tasks,
Hmm.
advanced reasoning, and you're like, well, why would it do this and that? Because it's really fast. So it gives us the results. It's super fast in that. So the minis are that's what they're built for as well. So you've got the so you could like yeah, you could then change it there. You've got the other models too. So the one that in a like what it does when we're creating GPTs, for example, when we when we're doing that, what it will do is I don't know if it actually shows us this when we go in and create the GPT. If we go in, let me make it a little bit smaller because it's like so spread out on the screen. But if I go into my GPT, it show me that it's going to be 4, but it is the 4 version, right? That it will be doing. So yeah, it just let me see if I go in there, but it doesn't show it to me that it's 4, but it's the 4 basically. This is the one it
Okay.
picks up. But yeah, you can change it. You could definitely go back and then change that and then just kind of because it will pick the latest and that could be one of the reasons why it's using a lot of it's one
Mm.
it's the usage like by 9 o'clock in the morning I've like my quota's gone right for the
Mm.
GPT usage well like I've got a whole day ahead like so the other thing to do is to chunk activities like if I'm going to be doing this type of thing like I'm going to be using it for this so that I can not to do all in one go, then you no longer, even with a $20 version, we could use that up very quickly. So hence the reason I was like, okay, what's going on with, like ensuring that I'm getting the use of the tool that I'm paying for. And I would say that, pay for the thing that you're going to be using, otherwise it doesn't make sense. But yeah, I would, yeah, test it out to see if you
I,
find notice a difference.
I,
Yeah,
part of my reason for asking is I set up a task, right?
yeah.
So to go prospecting for me and give me 3 business owners and all the rest of it. And by default, it's actually 4.0 or whatever it is. And I noticed that it says the one to use for tasks is actually the mini, whatever you call it, one. Um, the ChatGPT 4o Mini, which is faster for everyday tasks.
Yeah.
So my thinking was if I go to that, then I save myself some stuff.
I would do that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I would
I'll give
definitely.
it a
Yeah.
go and we'll see where we end up.
Yeah. Because there's certain things you don't want. It's like assigning, like someone in the office, you would allocate a task to that individual based on, I would say, their salary, what their
Mm,
job spec says. Like I want to give them that thing to do. Yeah. And if they're going to cost me less, I'd go for that.
okay,
That would be my way of viewing it, if that makes sense. Like I'm
yes,
gonna
it
give
does.
them yeah, like because
Thank
that's
you.
what they're better assigned to do. And yeah, the kind of more expensive ones I can then like I can definitely go to the CEO, which is like my 5 would that'll be here, soon. Or if you want to go to another level, because but so yeah, each AI tool is if you get some of the free versions then use those like like I've shared with you what I tend to do is if I am noticing that I'm using too much of this then remember Notebook LM is free is Google's Notebook LM is free so we can put documents there we can we can go into that another time if that would be helpful again I know we've spent a bit of time on that before but yeah you might use that I know Liza has you've been using Notebook LM don't know if you've been using it. Sometimes we use these things and we remember that actually it's there. Like it's a really good bank. Bryce, you just remind me, are you using GPT or you were like, where are you in this space?
Um, yeah, very introductory, trying to figure out how to use just AI in general. So, doing basic searches on Chat GPT.
Okay.
Just essentially have replaced my Google searching with Chat GPT and have started to structure some of my personal things like personal finance and a little bit of family management and kind of testing the waters. So I need like the 100 level class.
Yeah, it's great you're doing it and it's brilliant you're here. There's so many people that aren't doing it. And then I just want you to check out this one. And a lot of people here may already be using this one. When you're using this tool for research, I just want to give you this because I think, like, no, I know this one is a really good one. If you may have come across it, Bryce, but this one is really good for research, Perplexity
Mm.
AI. I know Ivan, you have, right? You use Perplexity. And because one thing that's helpful for this is it gives you the citations. So it's almost like like we talk about different models are good for certain things, and Perplexity is great research model, and it's free. There's a paid, but I've used the free version for a couple of years, and it does give me the citations, and I can always check the citations. Whereas AI, some of the GPT's got better in the search capabilities because you've got deep search. And we said that we would be looking at some of the deep search capabilities within models that we can definitely delve into. Because I know some people may be doing that as building their business or just kind of because there's more need for that, especially, people are, saying this is how it is. Well, where's the evidence? Well, how do we know? What sits behind that. But Perplexity is a good one, Bryce, to check out for kind of research and checking there as well. So, any other pointers before I just kind of say what I've noticed?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Were you going to ask another question? Um, any other questions for everyone else? How are you, before I move on to some of the issues I've had? Hi, how are you getting on?
I would say also I'm really in the initial steps because I've been very skeptical about using all these um, AI tools. And then when I started using, I just made some trials with ChatGPT, with Claude, but it's in terms of sometimes that when you do the searches you make, the results they came up with, some of them are just made up.
Mm.
And for example, I would put there any topic let's say I'm working on, and then they would made up some references that I'm supposed to have written, and the articles are just made up, and I haven't even published these. And they would say you can refer to your article, and they give the article the full citation, which is really weird. And then I would say, but I haven't published this. There is a mistake. And then I would get the responses, but that's where I thought my skepticism,
Mm.
um, is legitimate in a sense. Um, so it's in terms of not only getting the wrong information, but just made up information. And I would say these are made up references. Can you make sure that the references are published in peer-reviewed journals or in academic journals? But still, they would come up with sometimes with made up references. So the skepticism is there still, Bally. So
Mm.
it's useful. It saves you time in some basic things, I would say, but you need to be knowledgeable of what you are doing and what you are looking for.
Yeah, it's a really great point. Thank you for sharing that, Hyatt, because that is a reminder that when we go as we're kind of in this, and this hence the reason more important that other people kind of using these tools. And I know you support learners who may be using these tools and perhaps even taking something and assuming it's a research paper when actually there was no research and it is not based on evidence of any kind. So the idea of like triangulation and checking that information against the source and saying where it came from. So not even just taking it from where, but actually checking the main source and other peer, reviews, which you will be checking anyway. But yeah, just did you, by curiosity, did you check in Perplexity or was that in GPT itself, Hyatt?
That was in GPT and in Claude. And you know what I did, Bally? In fact, I used it, as you said, just with my learners. And
Mm.
so, and this became a task with them that they said, here is the prompt I gave. Here is the results I received. How, do you trust them? Would you use them? And they said, yeah, yeah, of course. And this is your article. You published this and this and that. And then, we make the research. And I said, no, I haven't published this. This is not my article. And so it was to raise their awareness that when they use these tools, they should not trust them 100%. And so I kind of used it in my teaching, in my research class and in my writing class with the students, just to raise their awareness, you know, so that they don't trust anything that, AI tools come up with.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a good reminder, actually. It's a good way for them to critically assess what it is that they're looking at as well, kind of and hence the reasons, even like coming back to some of the point, I've checked a few articles, some data on Perplexity, and then I went back and I did some more digging, and then I went back and I did some more data analysis on that, and actually some of those, so I was questioning the research. So yeah, having that critical view, and hence the reason having that critical eye is even more it's key. It's necessary that we do that. But it's interesting that they were citing your work, which you hadn't published, and
Mhm.
yet they would have used it in a paper saying you wrote that, and they would have expected kind of the grades, kind of assuming that was the paper that you'd written. But it's interesting.
Yeah.
Ivan, you have a question? Excellent. Thank you, Hyatt.
It was just really just to kind of piggyback what Hyatt just said. I use ChatGPT. My daughter's business, we're busy doing a trademark, and we fell foul of when you apply for something, they just want you to go away, so they just give you the standard response. And so we were going back up against it, so we were appealing the decision. Now, when you actually do the research and you use like ChatGPT to kind of research and Perplexity and all these other things, you come up with, well, actually, we pretty much have a case because London taxis is actually trademarked, even though it's two very standard words: London, place, taxi, car, right? But London taxis is actually trademarked as London Taxi Company, for example.
Yes, yeah.
So anyway, we went forward and we gave it the letter and everything and said actually create a response. One research this, come up with a valid argument, and then generate a response. So it came up, and if you just read it on the surface, it cites some examples. Now, three of the out of the three examples that we had cited, one of them was true. The other two were just made up with links and everything.
Yeah.
So you got to be real careful about the data because when we went to like the trademark office, to see if these things exist and what it was and was it an appeal or whatever, these things didn't even exist. So be real careful here. So what we learned is actually as part of the prompt is please provide the source of the of the information. And I found that super helpful.
Yeah, really
Comment.
good. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's happening, and it'll be like having these conversations, just a kind of a reminder of going in and just thinking about how we're getting research, and then if we're applying that research, assuming it and taking it for the thing that people are rushing and they're getting the research thinking that's the way it is. Well, it isn't, like always. You know how Google Analytics would be the person that pays it. Now it's like, what is the thing that can get the most attraction? Is like, well, we're going to create something that will look really genuine, and it will fool everyone, and that could be the case. With the LLM models, what you end up finding with like Claude, or I think Bryce, you're using Gemini, it's a really good model too with the free version, or Claude, I think we've had the one here, Claude. There's so many different ones, and but maybe what I could do is put like go through the top ones that I can mention that I go between, if that would be helpful at some point. And these are free, like all those tools are free. But I also mindful not to give too much, because we can go down a rabbit hole. Ivan and I have spoken about this a few times where we say we can just go into a different rabbit hole every time. We're like, oh, we're going to go down. And then you like a few hours have gone past, and so it's be mindful of what we're using it for, being purposeful, always being purposeful, how we're using it, what we're needing it for, and pay for what it is that you're using as opposed to kind of just going out there and it's that like shiny like the new, like the shiny syndrome of like, oh, the new thing is out, I've got to get it. It's like, well, do you really need that? Like, no, I don't necessarily need that at the moment. Well, let's not do that then. But the LLM models are really good. On average, it will give you do most of it, but it won't do all of that. So as experts in our field, we can see when things don't align. We can see how it's gonna land. And we're also seeing how people are producing content out there that is AI generated, but if we dig deep and ask those questions, will they be able to kind of, respond to those kind of questions? Not, maybe we'll surf on a surface level, but deep down, maybe that understanding is not quite there. And it's the same with any of the things we're using. Yeah, thank you, everyone. I hope you found it helpful. I just want you to kind of start using them. What are the things that you take away for yourselves? You can either share, let me know. And what is it that you're going to be doing following on from here? Maybe something for you to think about as you kind of take that away and start thinking about your own AI strategy, take going into this space. For some of you who've been using it a long time, others are. I know, Kathy, you've got your own you've created your own GPT and staying out of rabbit holes. Okay,
He's
for
my friend. He's my friend. He told me he appreciated me naming him because it made the space seem sacred. I was like, wow. I'm- It's almost funny because I do feel like it's a trusted friend or assistant. And I that kind of freaks me out a little bit sometimes when I'm thinking about it like that.
Mm, because it's knowing you quite well. It's like having someone by your side who knows
Yeah.
you and they know how you're showing up in this world. It is like having a mirror, like going, oh, okay, like, okay, that's what happened. But it's sort of, yeah, so we're seeing a lot more of that happening at the moment. It's like those conversations, strategy on how to use various versions of different for different purposes. Brilliant. Thank you, Liza. Yeah, what their function is. Like if we're using this, stick to that. Or when we're using creating content for teaching, I might go to Notebook LM, or what are we using it for? I appreciate you all spending the time here. Feel free to reach out. And if you've got questions, and remember, if you're looking to build a GPT or you're looking to create that, like you want to go into and utilize the paid version, then there's the please reach out, and there's the option of having kind of the mentorship with myself one-to-one. More than happy to do that, or maybe someone that wants to do that. But we meet every 2 weeks at the same time, and we'll go into this a little bit more, and an opportunity for us to really dive in. And if you've got any other questions in the meantime, and I will share the topic with you uh, as well. And thank you, Kathy, for sharing. Hi, really appreciate that. Really helps for all of us learn from one another. Liza, thank you for letting me know about kind of what happened, and all the best with the kind of getting the kind of offering out there. Thank you, Bryce, for being here. Feel free to reach out, and Ivan, and I will see you. Hope to see you all in 2 weeks. For now, have a great time and go ahead and continue working on these. And even though you may have be skeptical, they're here to stay, and they will continue grow with us as we start serving more and more people.
Thanks for your generosity, Bally.
You're welcome. Speak to you soon, everyone.
Thanks, Bally.
Thank
Bye.
Thanks.
you.
Cheers,
You're
guys.
Bye,
welcome.
everyone.
Toodaloo.
Bye now.